Hello everyone, welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training, a special episode today of our FMTrainingtv daily live stream at 1 o'clock. Every day at 1 o'clock we are spending time learning the FileMaker platform, learning all the great things you can do. We are teaching, we are being inspired, we're hearing your stories, we're sharing our stories with you, showing you how to build great sample files. And today I have an awesome developer who here is with me. This is Garrett Debski. Most of the time you don't see him. He's busy working at some Fortune 100 companies, doing some development work for them. And as a result, most of the time he doesn't have time to hang out with us with the cool kids. But today we got him released. He's off of double secret probation. He's here with us today to talk about the Claris Keynote. So I want to pop this little switch over here and talk about basically the it's not really a keynote, it's kind of a keynote. I guess they kind of called it a keynote, but the idea is that they basically had this kind of conversation about what it would have been DEF CON, but there was no DEF CON, and now we don't call DEF CON anymore. It's now Claris Engage. So there's all sorts of interesting things that were talked about today. So we had the upcoming broadcast today that started off, and then there was a little bit of a short Linux summary session, about 45 minutes worth. And so we also have Jacob Taylor on the broadcast with us today to talk about kind of some of those bits and pieces and his take on things that Claris has announced. If you go to claris.com/engage, you can see some of their upcoming schedule. See, there's a relevant screenshot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the Discord conversation kind of rolling over here on the side. I really recommend that the Discord people please only provide funny memes that are not offensive to children and old people. And so that would be awesome. Real quick, who are we and what we are and what's going on with us? So we are FMTrainingtv. So if I kind of bring this over here and move myself out of the way, if you go to FMTrainingtv, you can see this is our website. It's amazing we have a website in this modern day and age as I hide myself above and below and above and below. So this is, you come here, you can check out our on-demand video training. We have over 100 hours of on-demand courses. In fact, we have so many courses that we just put them together in a bundle. So the bundle is the FileMaker. It's the FileMaker platform. We call it the 2021 platform. And it's great because our team is updating this and keeping them up to date. And a lot of what I do has to have a lot to do with the stuff that we're going to talk about today, kind of the future trajectory of the live stream. And so before I get into that, the last little bit, we don't, if you're an Apple employee or a Claris employee, you get these bundles for free. It's free training. We provide this 100-hour training for the mothership for free. It's part of an agreement we have with them. And so if you don't know the link to that, you should find it on your Apple source page. If you don't have that, send an email to support@RC Consulting, and you can find that. But every day I see Apple people signing up, employees with Apple emails, signing up and getting our training. So we have the training right here. For the rest of us, we do have to pay the bill, right? And so we have training that comes complete 100-hour training with all our samples, demos, and a full copy of FileMaker right here, as well as over here is just the video training itself. It's a subscription. So let's talk about a little bit about what today was. So normally we talked about the Claris FileMaker Developer Conference, and it's kind of a conference, but it was not really a conference because you really can't go and meet people. So the reason I bring Garrett in here is Garrett goes to me for pretty much almost every DEF CON. I think he missed one of the Las Vegas DEF CONs, but he goes to every DEF CON with me. He's been here for like 1 billion years. And so the management team at Claris obviously has some challenges. And Garrett was there with me when we were there 2 years ago, the last in-person DEF CON in Florida, Orlando. And a lot of promises were made. A lot of promises. I don't even call it promises, but when you get up on, and there's one of those things, we're going to get, they always say this, anything you see or we might talk about here may or may not happen, right? Right? But then you get up on stage and people say things that no one in the company knows about. It's just like they're bobbing their head up and down and agreeing to stuff, right? So you got to watch out for people do kind of expect you to make an effort at making good on all the promises. So 2 years ago, there was a ton of things that we're going to do, right? Remember this, Garrett?
Yeah, 2 years ago, we walked away with head spinning, kind of not really even knowing what to think, because we were like, well, there's no way that they can come through with all of this, at least in a reasonable amount of time. So
I told Andy Lacates at the time and other developers there, I said, if they can deliver, I said this, a quarter to a third of what they just said, I would be stunned and amazed. That's always the danger with getting up as a new management team and just like saying, yeah, we're going to do everything, right? And the problem is that, you know, it was funny today. So Brad Freitag, overall, I want to say really well done. Really, really, really well done. So 2 years ago, fast forward today, and he said something at the beginning, and I'm not picking on Brad. Brad's a little bit older than I am. But he goes, yeah, you know, he's got all these years of being sales experience, but he has 8 years as a FileMaker guy, right? Not really developer, but in the community. And I was laughing because normally for you to make senior engineer at RCC, ask all the people in engineering and ask Rick Kalman, all the other people, 7 years. So if Brad has his head nose to the grindstone learning down there, he's about ready to become a senior person, right? About 7, 8 years. And so what do we get 2 years later? A really, really, really well done keynote address today. I thought it was by far his best presentation, organizationally the best presentation.
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, from the start, he came out talking about the FileMaker community and the partners, and that kept coming up over and over and over, along your lines of talking about his experience. I mean, he even brought up at one point, I think he kind of made it as an offhanded comment, but how he's been doing, testing all their upcoming FileMaker training and certification stuff that they've been putting out. So the fact that he's doing that, you know, gives some insight that he does care a little bit about trying to understand the platform and the users. So that was encouraging to hear that.
So I've had some offline conversations with certain people down at Claris, and they kind of gave me indications that there was this shift in management towards understanding what the developers actually represented. Because I don't think that when Ryan McCann and Brad came in the organization, they really fully grasped. I mean, everyone says, oh yeah, developers are important, right? But we want to be Salesforce, right, and sell directly to the customers, right, which was kind of their model, right? Hey, we want to be Salesforce. How come we're not Salesforce? And they didn't say that, but you could tell by their actions that that's kind of where they thought this would go, where this could be. You know, how Salesforce makes $7 or $8 or $10 billion a year, and how come Claris makes a tiny fraction of that, right? And so there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think them spending the years learning this has resulted probably in a management team now that it looks like they get it and they understand it, which is great. I'm really excited about that. So the focus of the conversation was over and over and over and over about, I wrote this down on my screen, and Garrett, you wrote a couple notes down, but I wrote some notes down here. I was so focused on this, I didn't hear other things that were said, but it says basically professional developers, basically they said that their the professional developers are their most important customers to Claris. So that's one sentence he says. Immediately then he says, and we want to stay true to our customers and our customer needs. So if you take sentence 1 and sentence 2 together, you put them together, which he didn't do, it says, we want to stay true to the developer and what they need. That was the message. That is the number one message that needed to be said and needed to be resonated. It resonated with me, and I've been 33 years of doing this. You know, I've been there through a lot of CEOs, a lot of managers, a lot of promises, and to really understand that and to embrace that is important. It's not that the end customers aren't important, but the developers, really the developers in the community, the people in this live stream for the most part, we're the ones that are out going to the customers, finding the customers, bringing the customers in, and we're basically the extended sales team for Claris. Now, Claris has a sales team, and they would say, we're the extended team. We're the most, but at the end of the day, you've got 80 some odd thousand developers out there using the FileMaker platform, and they are one way or the other probably positively talking about the platform. That's 80,000 positive people. Then you got a couple crazy people like me who run daily live streams or whatever we do. I don't think anyone's quite as crazy as I am, but yes. So if we say Richard's on one side, and then the people who kind of like begrudgingly use it and say it works pretty good on the other side, there's 80,000 people in between those two lines, which is huge, right? It's a much bigger sales team than Claris could ever possibly afford to go. So Jacob Taylor, go ahead. Jacob, are you there?
Yeah, not detracting from what you're saying at all, and it's orthogonal to it. Kyle and Moki and them were talking about kind of more of the programmer facing end of this. I just not talking about anything that was presented at all.
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get that. So let's
Okay.
not. I don't want to jump ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to that the one quote that I wrote down that he said, and he said, the priority is to drive awareness of our partner community. And he said it 2 times in a row. He stopped, paused, and then repeated that same exact sentence again.
Which means he wanted you to hear it. Because most people,
he wanted you to hear it, and I heard it and wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I think that by far that was the overall message to me of today's event.
So from the bits of data that I've been getting from other parts of the company, it seems like my understanding is that this conversation with the keynote was genuine, right? I think if you went back to Brad 3 or 4 years ago and he said, yeah, developers are important, I think that's a talking point. I think he actually really gets it right now, really gets it. And I'm not slamming him, but once again, you can't, I don't know that you can be a senior executive at this company with 2 or 3 years of experience in the FileMaker platform. You just can't. You don't understand the moving pieces. And I'm not picking on them. They did what they did. But Brad, I'm really impressed by it. And he hit, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm sure one way or another this will get back to him, but really kicked on the presentation. And I'll tell you why. The first part was good. But then you're always waiting for, like, if you look at all the missteps from 2 years ago. 2 years ago was basically a management team who went out in a minefield and went stomping around on purpose trying to hit every possible landmine they could step on and blowing themselves up. They didn't know they blew themselves up. The engineers and product management knew they were blowing themselves up, but they couldn't say anything. They're not in charge, right? And so 2 years later, look at the difference. Look at the difference. So let's talk about this. I'm going to cite song and verse. So what I'm about to present to you should scare the living out of all FileMaker developers, right? And they knew it was important, it was essential, it would be scary. And Peter Nelson, who obviously is working in lockstep with Brad, focused fundamentally on trying to take the scary part out of it. So let's talk about the scary part, okay? And whether people understood this or not, here comes the scary part. So this is FileMaker today. We have FileMaker Pro, Go, front end called WebDirect. And then you've got this back end, which is Draco, okay? Draco has kicked ass for 33 years, and the other companies wish they had something still this cool. And I want to add one thing to this is that Claris understands that Draco gives us localized, I can't remember the word for it. What about Jacob Taylor? Someone is, it's not cloud-based, but it's local.
On-premise.
On-premise, thank you. On-premise is the word. So it's a basic word. On-premise capability. They didn't really say that, or maybe they said it, but I was already overwhelmed by, I was so overwhelmed by Brad really killing it on the front end that I was having a hard time listening to Peter, right? It's almost like, okay, Brad talks for 10 minutes. Can we all take a break? I can get a coffee. I can process what the hell he said, and then we can go to the next section, right? Because it was so good. So Peter Nelson had to backstop Brad, and he did that, which was great. And what he does, he gets into this thing where we're talking about, well, so that's FileMaker before. Now let's take a look at what we want to do. So what we want to do, they want to build this new thing over here. They want to build, in fact, Peter Nelson called it new stuff, okay? It was actually flipped. It was very funny. He did it deliberately because there's obviously been some arguments about what the hell to call this thing down there. And anytime that the vice president, I like it when people are honest. And even if you don't know the answer and you're honest, right? I love honesty. Honesty is like number one. It trumps everything. It's why I get up here. I bare my soul. I don't lie, cheat, and steal in the live stream. I don't lie, cheat, and steal to my customers. I don't lie and cheat and steal to my employees. And I am honest. And if I say I don't know, I don't know. And if I go to a customer and say, I don't know, but I will find out. Peter Nelson did that so very subtly. He goes, whatever he called this next thing, right? The new stuff, right? And they always like to say it's the next gen, right? It's the next thing. How about we take a break and have a moment of honesty? We have no idea what we're going to call it, right? But it's the new stuff, okay? I love it, right? It's so subtle. It's simple, but it's a subtle thing. It means that they're making an effort not to candy coat everything, not to package it. They have a new UI, new stuff, new back end. All this is based upon, once again, they said it officially. I've known about this for a while, but I was waiting for them to say it. Thank you. Was that basically the technology they built the quick start in is the front end GUI kind of technology. How it works is kind of the front end GUI that they want to build for this new stuff. And so then they lay this slide on us right here, which is promptly where everyone, okay, forget the first part, forget the second part, what you should do is read this stuff backwards to forwards, right? No SQL native, okay? So we're gonna rip the engine out of FileMaker, and build a brand new engine. Ah! Everyone's screaming, running for the hills. And Peter Nelson made it a very important, and I'm not clear how this works, but he made it ultra clear. So Peter, you're on the hook for this. Sorry. He made it very clear to not scare us, is that we're not going to abandon you. You can use the old stuff. You can press a button, it'll migrate to the new stuff. What they are doing, and once again, this is how this works, is this kind of cross communication between these two systems, is that they, remember all this XML serialization of the code. We've talked about the emergency Star Trek transporter, Kyle doing hacks, Christian doing hacks. We talk about the XML serialization all the time. They're taking that serialization of the code and basically saying, oh, and I remember David and I talking about this like a year ago, going, well, what if they could take their code and then move it, and it goes into another system with a different engine, and it just works, right? And so David and I, who kind of saw, like, once you codify or you make the FileMaker non-proprietary, I mean, it's still kind of proprietary, but you're not locked to it. And you take the code out and you can, as a text file, and you can import it somewhere else. You could build another system to read it in. Technically, another competing company could build another system to read it in, right? There's the danger, but it'd be a big investment. But yeah, you could read it in, and this other system happens to be a NoSQL system, right? Jacob, you want to give us a little backstory on NoSQL? What do you know about that? Because I don't use it.
Not a huge amount. The way I usually describe it to people is document storage. Document doesn't mean like a Word doc or something else, but like your little blob of data that you want to store. What's cool about NoSQL is so SQL and FileMaker are relational databases. They are tables and columns and things like that. NoSQL is like, you're going to store these things in the database. What are the things? We don't know, but we're going to categorize them together, and you can look up, and so there's like different properties that you can do with that. You're not going to like select rows of data like you do in FileMaker or something like that, or this run through records or what. Like, it doesn't work quite the same way, but it gives you other cool properties.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's basically a high-performance back-end engine, right, that scales. So I think the idea, their vision, is to take FileMaker Pro kind of, I say this kind of, as best as they can. In fact, talking to product management, they want to take it, and their job is to glue it and graft it as basically a front-end system. And so they abstract that out, and then that allows them to talk to various different backends. And so we don't have to learn a new backend system, right? We don't have to learn a new system. Now, the system will obviously have some definite benefits, probably have some negatives. Nick is over here freaking out, of course. And so I think what you're going to see is, so they said this very clearly. One, they implied, they didn't say this, let me help you with plain English, don't freak out. Because you're going to be able to use the older system, you can use the newer system. I think that but they want to have on-prem. They must have on-prem. So there'll be some sort of version of this thing that works on-prem, some sort of version that works in the cloud with a much better engine. I think maybe you could take the NoSQL and put some rules on it and make it behave like Draco to a point. I think people like Nick, who have the very subtle little tweaky things to make, like Nick is going to have to go back to school. I love Nick, but he's going to have to go back to school. We're all going to have to go back to school. In fact, I've started a conversation with Claris already on this topic. Like, yo, we have to train people on this shit. You need to include us as soon as possible so we can start building the content, right? And so the little weird little things that make Nick so special, because he worked down there, unfortunately, those are going to get kind of lost to the wind a little bit. And the little tweaky things that make it go super fast will change. There'll be different rules, different things you do to make it go faster. For example, scripting is much slower in a calculation than custom functions, right? And it's like night and day different. Will that still be true on this new system? I don't know, but things like that might go away. Now, building a great user experience, building a great user solution, using neomorphism and all these sort of advanced design techniques and things, that doesn't change. In fact, it becomes more and more important. So Claire said that, Garrett, I mean, did you hear what I heard? It's like, hey, you're not going to be, don't panic because we're going to allow a kind of a transfer between these two things.
Yeah. I mean, it's right on that same screenshot. They said it runs in cloud and on-prem. So I didn't really catch, they didn't really go into what the differences would be, if there'd be any sort of limitations if you're running it on-prem or not. But there also was that previous screenshot, which I don't know if we got, where they called it ESS Plus or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the way that they're gonna be linking on-prem to this new, like you have a regular Draco backend FileMaker database that you're then using ESS Plus to connect to their new stuff. They didn't talk about it, but that did show up on the screenshot, so that's kind of what flew through my mind.
Yeah. Let me give a little color to that. So part of this conversation I'm giving you is based upon other data that's fairly fresh over the last 60 days that I have. Largely, the people said, "Hey, go listen to Brad, and we can talk more after." But the point is that the critical things are developers are important. On-prem is important because all their competitors, all the low-code competitors, don't have on-prem. They all have cloud first, which is funny because that was that term that they used 2 years ago, right? It's all about the cloud. Got to have the cloud. Got to have the cloud. FileMaker's secret sauce is two things. It's the community and the momentum that community has attained over 30 some odd years, right? It's also the on-prem. That's what makes it special. If all you had was FileMaker WebDirect up in the cloud, I don't know it could hold off the competitors. It's not, not enough there. So.
Could not.
And that's one term I wrote down. He said it like in the first 30 seconds of the event. He said cloud smart. And he referenced it a couple times. I was like, what's cloud smart?
Yeah.
About five minutes later, he came back to it and he described it as having cloud smart is FileMaker's balance of having on-prem with the cloud expectations of a modern day system. So they're kind of coming back to defining their own terms here, and cloud smart is their way of seeing that they have to have that balance of the two things together in order to be successful.
Right. Yeah, and 2 years ago, they scared the living out of everyone. Garrett, you were there, and we all went, oh my God, right? The four-letter words were just flowing endlessly because they walked out of there and went, yeah, it's cloud first. Except that that's not Claris's biggest strength, and the thing that keeps them in business right now, why they're not out of business, is because they have this really killer on-prem system. They have a really killer on-prem that kind of scales to the cloud, but doesn't really kick. So the goal is for Claris to extend the kicking from on-prem to also the cloud, right? So we should call it on-prem kicking with cloud, but they wouldn't like that.
Yeah,
so.
They can't reasonably hit enterprise for real with a cloud only solution. Because enterprise IT, you could even look at Apple or somebody like that. They won't okay stuff like that because they can't control it. It's somebody else's service. They need to be able to get in and poke at stuff and whatever. Do the things that they do that are their job. And they will see things like that as shadow IT and try and kill it.
Yeah.
Which that was another major point that I felt like they were trying to bring home today, is that they want to really emphasize and work on IT compliance, being friendly with IT. They're rolling out, they're investing a lot.
That was so good to see.
And Jacob can definitely talk a lot more to that, but they've been getting different compliance ratings and putting different, they said something about getting a couple different certification tests out there for like IT managers that they can, take to get, quote unquote certified.
Okay, just so you know, when they said that, my meter went off because they've been talking about that for 20 years, right?
If people are watching,
I'm sorry.
Test.
you will beta test the admin
I will
test.
beta test the exam. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, well then go for it, Jacob. But yeah, I that was one, I only had a moment once. They've been talking about, let's have a server exam and let's have a Claris Connect exam. Andy LeCates 3 months ago said there would be no Claris Connect exam 3 months ago on a live stream because he goes, in fact, I heard him say it, right? So is Andy LeCates allowed to change his mind? Sure. But he goes, there's not that much really to test on it, right? So how would we test on that, right? There's not that much to it. You drag and drop, it kind of works, right? That was one of those where Claris has contradicted itself within 3 months, and when they do that, I kind of then I take the entire conversation, I just blow it out in space and ignore it.
Something they kind of hinted at, I don't know. They said the certification was brought to align with product cycles. So I don't know if that means that 19 is now 2 years and then it's going to rev. I don't know if they meant to let that out, but he said that.
Yeah, there's no. I don't think there's been any decisions made on that. There's a lot of people who are running around going, "Hey, get rid of the name FileMaker." Okay, let's just shoot ourselves in the head or the foot, right? I mean, I understand that FileMaker is an older term, but it also means that the people who've been writing checks when they see the bill come in for FileMaker, right? They understand that a little bit. You can call it FileMaker. You can get rid of Pro, get rid of Go, get rid of WebDirect. It's kind of all negotiable. But FileMaker is kind of this known word. I love it because people don't understand that the execution in the last couple of years from Claris has not been enough really to. If Claris was a startup and they'd pulled the stunt over the last 2 years they just pulled, they'd be gone. Be out of business. Claris is in business because of institutional momentum. Literally the momentum generated from 30 years. I believe that without a doubt. I've seen a lot of people going, you should call it Cloud Happy App Builder. I'm like, what the hell is that, right? So everyone's got an opinion, of course, anyone. I just think that certain words, Claris already rebranded itself. I don't think they need to do a two for branding, right? If you wanted to call it FileMaker App Builder or FileMaker whatever, but I think the word FileMaker is kind of this glued investment. Even for RCC, for our, and we're not trivial. And the rebranding would just and the SEO and all this stuff would be just hard. And I got people out there who are only consultants, who they're like, hey, change the name, the Moyers, right? Port Moyer, right? Heidi Porter and Chris Moyer, they're like, change the name, no big deal, right? And I go, well, you realize I'm going to have to personally write a check, just RCC. I'll have to write a check probably of $200,000 just to cover that name change. People don't think about all the moving pieces in the community, right? Questions, Garrett? Questions, comments? I thought it's a fantastic event. I really did.
Yeah, another term I wrote down that I hadn't heard them use before was professional low code, kind of referencing the relationship between wanting to be a low code platform, but depending on their professional developer community. So that going back to their whole emphasis on their partner community, that was something else that they kind of rolled out that I saw.
Okay. Yeah. Professional low code. So I've actually it was kind of funny because I got an email. We shot a video a while back about what is FileMaker, and FileMaker is kind of like this. It's been the low code leader for 30 years plus. And it's not even, when you go to the low code, I don't know, I haven't been to it in about a month, but I go to the low code wiki webpage and FileMaker's not even there. And they by far are the biggest low-code platform ever. Remember, it came from kind of loosely, well, not even really, but HyperCard was kind of in there, right, and all that kind of stuff, and that became
inspired by
real basic, and then that became LiveCode, right? So LiveCode is another low-code product, but LiveCode is much smaller, and they are also endorsing and supporting Claris. I have, by the way, started conversations, right? Thanks to Scott, I am talking to LiveCode about their Android stuff to find out if it passes Richard's test for not sucking too much, and then we can talk about it online. But they're moving forward, yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff in there. Nick down here is excited about nested layouts, things like that. They talked about a couple technical things, but I think largely it was, here comes this big strategic thing we're going to do, and don't freak out. And we love developers. We really love developers. We really love developers. I mean, can you summarize it in that, right? I mean, I guess it's in the proper order. It's developers are our bread and butter. We love our developers. We want to stay true to the developers because they are our biggest customer. And then Peter Nelson, he goes, oh yeah, and here's all this amazing new stuff, and don't freak, right? That was a summary of his stuff. And we don't know what we're calling it yet, right? So, yeah, so I mean, we love developers, and here's cool stuff, and don't freak. I can summarize the whole thing from that. And so but if you're a now, my sales guy, who is not an engineer. He couldn't define a field for the life of him. He's just literally a pure, he could sell BMWs, he could sell Trojan condoms, he sells FileMaker, right? It doesn't matter what he sells, he just sells. He watched the webinar, the keynote, he didn't get it, right? I said, it's not meant for you. This live stream, I encourage you folks to watch it. We'll find the recording for it. I encourage you to watch it. I was afraid it was going to suck. I was down in my heart. I was afraid. I really was. I was like, I'm on a diet right now, and I wanted a big bottle of vodka. Seriously, I asked for alcohol. My wife wouldn't give it to me. So I was, I'm totally true. And because I figured that if I had to hear a disaster keynote, I'd rather do it intoxicated. So some developers think that the presentation sucked. Okay, so if you're a developer and you thought the presentation sucked, you haven't been paying attention for the last 2 years. Because if you've been paying attention the last 2 years, there's developers who've left the community. There's people who've warmed up their resumes to leave. This is the first communication that I felt where they got it, where the senior management team understood it. They really understood it. Not just like, oh, developers are good, right? So I'm talking about serious understanding. I could just tell you that I was bracing for, because historically with this team, it's not been great. Brad did a really great job. I think that him and Peter just killed it. And everything after that was fluff. I think everything after that was fluff. Robert kind of give you a demo of what Peter was talking about, which was useful, but I've already been kind of slowly foreshadowing kind of where this was going, right? If you've been watching this live stream, we've had these conversations, right? The tech that they are building upon, you already have in 19.3. It's the quick start stuff. And you're like, well, that's horrible. It's underpowered. It's not the features. It's the underlying window interaction technology, right? It feels like an app. It's kind of based in the web. It's more webbish. I love it. Nick, you like it? Nick, are you there? So Moki, so we will be able to just code our FileMaker UI with CSS now. No statements, back up, stop. The
question is backwards.
It doesn't. The point is that we are, so 2 years ago, there was this keynote, and they called it the next gen. And they said it was going to be the most amazing stuff ever. They promised the world, right? And so then everyone's like, where's next gen? And then last year was kind of like this kind of drive around it, not quite sure. And then this year, they finally started to specify what next gen is, and the underlying technology is being explained. They're not telling you how all the parts work. They're still figuring it out, right? But the point is that they now understand how to talk to developers. And I think, listen, if this was just the keynote, okay, so some of you are like, why is Richard so optimistic? This conversation, this keynote was entirely consistent with the messages and the meetings that I've had with individual Claris people, okay, were pretty senior, but not senior enough, right? You guys can all figure probably out the short list of people who I probably talked to, okay? I talked to them 2 or 3 months ago, and everything that came out at this kickoff here, this keynote, is consistent with what they were delivering to me. They're saying people are understanding it, they're getting this, and instead of me explaining to you, they said over the last month, just go watch the keynote. And I'm like, got it. So does that make sense? So I'm a little more optimistic because I'm seeing this messaging consistently from a number of different people, not just in the keynote. So you have to take my word for it that Richard wouldn't lie to you. So Nick, thoughts, comments?
No, it's okay. I want to talk about Peter Nelson because you remember.
Keep in mind that Peter Nelson is probably going to listen to this video if he's not watching it right now. Okay, just be careful. If you start saying that Peter Nelson, I'm just saying.
You're going to be very surprised because I remember him. I worked with him many times, and it was the very beginning for me at FileMaker, and I had to work with him on many projects. And it's a Nick Hunter on steroid. That means a lot of slamming doors, a lot of name calling, and at the end he left the company because he was tired of talking about doing nothing. You know what I mean? Having 2 weeks of meetings at the end, oh, let's do nothing. You know what I'm talking about, Richard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So okay. So now we have a conjunction of planets. An alignment of planets.
Alignment of planets, yes, right.
Planets that we never had at FileMaker since I think the beginning of the company. we got rid of all the dinosaurs. All those people there since day one. Employee number one, employee number two, employee number three are gone. And in one point, it's good. At one point, it's good. Now we have this new generation of people like Peter Nelson. And remember, we had a discussion about this. You were a bit afraid about him, and I told him, you will see, this guy will completely kick the butt of everybody over there. And exactly what he's done. He has done exactly this, and I'm very happy, and I want to thank him for that. Thanks for joining the company. Thanks, Brad, to be smart enough to get this guy back in the company, because he was the only one that says, "Oh, we need to move forward," right? When all the people were saying, "No, it's urgent to do nothing." Okay, so that's what I want to say. I want to jump in to say, okay, this guy. I'm not surprised at what I've saw today. I'm excited to go back to school, by the way, and I'm very happy to go back to school. When I said Draco, without Draco, you're out of business. It's not the abandonment of Draco, it's just the modification and the adaptation of the Draco philosophy. Because Draco is a philosophy, it's not an engine, it's a philosophy behind it, right? The FileMaker, we will never lose the FileMaker philosophy behind the thing. But I'm very happy that for the first time, they got it, like you said, they got it. What's important is a guy like you, like me. Help me, if you help me working, like an advanced guy, you help the small guy.
Okay, Brad said that. He said power to the problem solvers, but he says that's not really a great tagline. And I was writing this down. Glad at the time I hadn't drunk my vodka because I was concerned, right? So he said, instead of saying power to the problem solvers, it's basically empowering you, the developers, to do what you do best. That was exactly. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like someone just threw a 98-yard touchdown pass down the field.
They finally got it. So now they're going to take a great risk. You're going to, when you do something like this, you do exactly what Apple did by abandoning Classic to macOS 10. Remember Puma, the first version of macOS 10? Everybody was freaking out. Oh my God, it's the end of Apple. Look where we are now. Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, comment from Twa on YouTube. We got a lot of people. Once again, we broadcast on 3 different services simultaneously: Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. On YouTube, Twa says, companies do not purchase FileMaker, they purchase business solutions. This is what makes developers important. Claris going direct to market is nonsense. All support should go to developers. And he didn't say that all of it's going to go to developers, but he said that developers were their biggest, most important customer, and they were going to stay true to their customers. So that to me was like, okay, so good. Other comments and questions, Discord, YouTube, Twitch, because there's a lot of people watching this live stream right now.
Did anybody catch a screenshot of Robert Halsey's slide that had visual workflows on it?
That's an interesting
There was one of the things that I called out as a random interesting tidbit in there, because it looked like something Steve at RCC here turned me on to a couple of years ago, actually, which is called Node-RED, which is I think it does a bunch of different things, but it's a way that you can kind of drag and drop, and it's a little bit like the database tab, being able to connect tables together and stuff like that, and so you can create business processes or workflows or stuff like that. So other people build their software on top of it. And he screenshotted like that, but it was FileMaker.
Yeah, I don't have that screenshot. I have the part where it talks about visual workflows, his overall slide. And the slide basically says a grid system, beautiful layouts, faster, responsive, and reflow rules. I see Nick being the holy, the queen goddess of reflow rules, right? That's going to
actually I show you that if you remember. I show you something about this. It's not the news for me. This stuff.
Okay.
And it will be if they do the right way. It will be like, wow.
Okay. Visual flows, they say get you started faster, visually define user's journey. So when they're trying to get away from this idea of tables, because we always spend a lot of time with FileMaker developers. What's an entity? What's a table? What are the things? What is an invoice? What are line items? What is a student? What is a class? What's the difference between an attendee in a class and a student and a course in a class? Courses and classes are two different things, right? So they're trying to find a way to get away from that. If they can do that successfully, that will be very helpful. Yeah, there's more content coming. So I don't have too much more to say. I don't want to belabor this. If someone has any specific questions, Christian Schmidt just pointed out that, yeah, they have more content coming. So there is an event coming up. There's a executive executive Q&A on September 2nd. We'll want to sign up for that. It's actually your two most important pieces here in terms of I mean, literally, it was a giant Hail Mary throw down the field to, as for American football fans, to Peter Nelson, who was running down the field, catching it like the 98-yard football, the bomb. The quarterback just like cranked one down there. It's like Brett Favre or something, right? So anyway, so yeah. So well done, Mr. Freitag. Very nicely done. And then let's see. So then they have some sort of partner-exclusive strategic growth initiatives and discussion with Claris leaders. I guess he'll be talking a little bit, although it's only for an hour, so it can't be, I don't know what you're going to cover in an hour, but that'll be interesting. And then I got a session coming up, Steve Romig. They're going to try to like build an app in 60 seconds or something like that, 60 minutes. And then they have other sessions where they want to do platform under the hood, stuff like that. My general impression on this future stuff is it's 12 plus months away. That hasn't been written and no one's told me that. I can just tell you that it's not even loosely in an early ATS or anything like that. It seems to me it's kind of, the stuff they showed you today was a video recording of it working, not even actually doing it. So anyway, ETS is external testing. It's when you get people sign up for ETS and you test the new software and then you write up the bugs and give it to Claris, right? So it's a very important thing. Garrett.
It's not something that we are going to see tomorrow. That's true.
No, it's going to take a while for them to because they have to master, for this to work and for them to move code back and forth with this new system. They have to completely finish that XML transporter, the Star Trek emergency transporter. Beam me up. We had a whole live session about that, right? Rendering your application out purely as XML code. With the term I use is perfect fidelity. Right now it does it. It's not perfect fidelity. It's kind of So like the equivalent is if you beam Garrett from point A to point B, he's in Colorado, you beam him to California, he might be missing 3 fingers on his left hand. The rest of Garrett's all there and fine, but sorry, those fingers aren't coming back. So it's mostly, well, if it was you're going to crash in a plane or sink on a boat, then yeah, 3 fingers might be a sacrifice you're willing to live with. So, yeah, there you go. All right, Nick, anything else? Jacob Taylor, anything else?
Do we want to mention WIM's Linux talk as well?
Well, you can briefly do it. Moki says, yikes, I want my client to have all their fingers, okay? That's why right now it's really still, this is why the add-ons are the way they are, and the add-ons aren't perfect, and they have these issues. As people go, oh, the add-on's buggy, it doesn't do this thing. That's the add-on lopping off 3 fingers on your solution as they bring it in, right? That's what that is, right? So, Moki, you've already got it. Okay, Moki. Linux what? There is no Android. No Android was mentioned at any time. The only
that would never happen. That would never happen. The Android stuff would never happen.
Well, that's why I'm talking to Live Code. I'm talking to CEO of Live Code, and we'll see.
And especially after today, where now they're no longer saying an Apple subsidiary. They're saying an Apple company. I mean, there's no way that's happening.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, what they'll have is whatever I'll call it the replacement for WebDirect, if there is one, that will maybe actually run on Android. Like it'll run reasonably well on a phone. Okay. That could be what they would deliver. It still would never be a native app.
So for those of you who are joining this broadcast late, I think Agent Chevy is one of those people that joined late. I'm not going to rehash everything here. We've kind of basically hammered the conversation here. And what I suggest you do is, instead of just listening to me give you the details, go watch the keynote. There'll be a recording of it. And I would suggest watch Brad at the beginning, watch Peter Nelson next, and then watch Robert Halsey. And those were the key 3 things that had to happen for the developers not to lose their today, right? So developers are already vibrating. I mean, when developers are warming up resumes to leave,
I mean, in my opinion, 2 years ago, I mean, they almost completely alienated the developer community.
They did alienate the
all they were showing is future, 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 and all they could say was that we will still offer FileMaker as an on-premise option. That is the only thing they said to all the developers in the room. Today's message was, hey, here's our future stuff, here's our current platform, and it all intersects at, you know, the developer community. That's what's going to bring it together, and that's how we're all going to be successful together. And that was their message, and that's why all of us sitting here are optimistic, because they were finally able to take those two sides of the conversation and bring it together in a place that makes sense. 2 years ago, we all walked away like, that's great, it's all pie in the sky, and if that happens, developers are out of a job almost. Like that's how they left it. And today it's the complete opposite. It's here's this, and the developers are what's going to bring it all together. So that's what I walked away with, and that's why I was super optimistic about the whole event.
All right, cool. Well, that covers it for today. For those of you kind of sliding in late, you have a lot of questions. A lot of people like, where's my Android? I mean, I know there's a lot of conversation about Android. The word Android was never mentioned today. So that's it for now. We greatly appreciate it. Everyone here, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, or you really hate RCC and Garrett sucks because he doesn't not sexy enough, and Jacobs, you can't see his video, and Nick has to go back to school to learn how to build an interface. Oh, poor Nick.
How to build an interface? No.
How to click a mouse. To click your mouse,
Have to use new tools.
New tools, right? So, all right, that's it for today. We'll catch you tomorrow. And then what's tomorrow's broadcast? Just real quick, if I hit the button, what are we doing tomorrow?
Great question. Oh, printing to receipt printer from FileMaker with Jeff Cooper.
Oh, Jeff Cooper's going to be here. Brand new developer. Pretty awesome. Mr. Cooper is going to be talking about receipt printers, stuff like that. You need to loop back to him, make sure he's good to go for tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, folks, everyone, that's it. Appreciate it. Have a good day. See ya.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.